Please, Mr. Agnew, would you start us off?
Well, Chair and honourable members, thank you for having me back. The committee, it's a pleasure to be here in person to do this for the first time in quite some time. And I think also it's a very welcome thing from the Chamber standpoint to have this study being done as the travel season begins to ramp up for the summer. To say that the pandemic has been a disruption for international travel is certainly an understatement for our members. We've gone through both the decimation of complete travel flows to now the pendulum swinging the other way with travel ramping up and backlogs being seen at key points of entry, as you've all seen reported in the media. Executing effective border policies is not an option for us given the criticality of travel for the economy, whether it's business or tourism. We must get it right to ensure that Canada remains an attractive destination for travelers. Given the long lead-in time for event planning, organizers will take decisions today that will be felt for 12 to 18 months out still in the future. I want to turn to the committee's main topic of interest with the ArriveCAN app. The Canadian Chamber has been a long proponent of digitizing border procedures to support contactless travel. Unfortunately, the ArriveCAN experience has proven difficult at the border for our members and businesses across the country. The first point to note are the duplications that the app has created. The traveler experience has been complicated by the diffuse places that the same information has to be inputted in by that individual. As someone who has traveled recently outside of the country, it's striking that information that I'm providing is both to the airline as well as through the app in more than one place. The second point are the data requirements for the app, particularly for tourists from the U.S. that are engaging in day trips. Travelers that would engage in day trip activities simply wouldn't have things like a Canadian address. And this directly impacts border communities, and so that's something that we've heard from our chambers that are in those towns, in those parts of the country. Third are the concerns with universal access, which were touched upon in the first panel that this committee heard from. Although, I'm fortunate enough to have the tech literacy to use the app, there are many travelers, particularly elderly travelers, again, as was stated earlier, who do not have that tech literacy. In preparing for this committee appearance, I was astounded to read actually a recent article by the CBC about a company in Maine that's monetized the services to Canadians that are going back into New Brunswick and helping them fill out the ArriveCAN app for $5 a service. And certainly that's not something that we'd want to see as a business community. And of course, there are also difficulties for people whose first languages are not English or French. You've heard already a bit from the officials that appeared as to the uptake statistics that the government is seeing for the ArriveCAN app. I think what I would say, though, to sort of build on that, is that with the contact time that a border officer is spending with a traveler, certainly that has gone up quite substantially, and border infrastructure wasn't designed for those types of wait times, and I think that's another key factor to bear in mind. Now, this isn't to say to scrap the app. As I noted a moment ago, digitizing border procedures is vital. We instead must reorient the app to focus on streamlining customs procedures, as well as see what sort of manual alternatives may be needed in reserve. Ultimately, the app is in large measure a reflection of our country's border policies. The announcement last week of suspending randomized testing and moving testing out of airports was a welcome development, as was this week's announcement of partially lifting vaccine mandates for travelers. However, there is certainly more work to be done. For example, the decision to lift outbound vaccination requirements may be welcome, but maintaining it for inbound travel will certainly continue to create pain points as you have unvaccinated travelers leaving the country, but then facing requirements when they come back in that, of course, as we know, do cause additional time with border officers at points of entry. With the summer travel season here and the last 2 seasons being missed, we certainly don't have the luxury of time to get this right for businesses all across the country. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agnew.